I have always felt that tariffs are their own punishment, and I still don't understand why Americans want to punish the consumers of aluminum when you get 60% of it from Canada. It's also a product that Americans can't produce themselves. You don't have bauxite, so there is no way to have a homegrown aluminum industry. So we're kind of scratching our heads in Canada saying, why is this on the list? In fact, I think aluminum really should be in the same category as critical minerals and elements that we have a special relationship over. I understand why every country wants to have its own steel development. I understand that the Americans don't want the Chinese using Canada as a backdoor to dump product into the market. But some of the decisions are a bit of a head scratcher for us, and I hope it's the beginning of what will result in a new renegotiation of the USMCA so that we can get back to enjoying the virtually tariff-free relationship that benefits both of us.
Well, you're clearly ready to have a conversation. Is that how this ends? What are you hearing as you're in Washington? What are the prospects of a trade deal to get around this?
I know in Canada there's optimism. I just this week met with my counterparts, the 13 premiers, as well as the federal prime minister. And because we've got G7 taking place in the coming weeks in my home province of Alberta, in Kananaskis, I think that everybody's hopeful that it would be really nice either just before or during or just after to announce that there has been some kind of détente or interim step towards getting to a comprehensive renegotiation of trade. I know that Dominic LeBlanc, who is our counterpart to Howard Lutnick, is in Washington as well, having some of those conversations. I don't want to prejudge what the outcome would be, but at the moment we have a virtually tariff-free relationship with the United States. For all of the threat of tariffs, all of the USMCA compliant goods don't have tariffs on them right now. We've got a problem with steel, cars, aluminum, and timber. But I think that I think we're beginning to see a realization on both sides that we are stronger together, and it's better to maintain the relationship as it is.
Well, as you mentioned, all of the premiers getting together, what are you asking of Prime Minister Carney? Are there things you're pushing for him to do in terms of action?
I think what you're seeing is that the sentiment is that if the Americans truly do want us to find other trading partners, then we should be serious about that. We should be trading more with each other. Maybe rather than sourcing some of our steel beams and other products from America, maybe we source it from Ontario and Quebec. Maybe rather than talking about new pipelines to the Gulf Coast, maybe we talk about pipelines to British Columbia and the Hudson Bay in Manitoba, so that we can go to both Asian and European markets. So I think the conversation in Canada has maybe shifted in a way that Americans weren't anticipating. America remains our strongest and most important trading partner. Most of the provinces trade north-south, but it's really initiated another conversation about how do we trade more with each other to counteract the effects perhaps of America buying less from us, as well as how do we find new markets. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do that as complementary to Americans' interests in especially energy dominance. But at the moment, is when you've got a friction in your relationship, that's one of the things that we're trying to sort out. Are there new markets that we can be that we can go into?
A lot of conversations about pipeline in Alberta. You currently have excess capacity, TMX, Enbridge. Why would oil companies sign up for a new line if that remains the case?
I think that there's been some misinformation.
Yeah.
I know that the environment minister, who wants to keep it in the ground, has been suggesting that somehow TMX is only at 40% capacity. It's simply not true.
What is it?
It's at 85 to 90%. One of the things we have to do is dredge the channel that it goes through so that we can have heavier boats going so they can be filled up. But we also just recently saw a new auction that went through, and there were 400,000 barrels of demand for what was only going to be 100,000 new barrels of supply. So I have no question in my mind that if we build a new pipeline, it will be filled, especially as we look towards the Asian markets. We have been able to build a pipeline to our west coast with Trans Mountain. Initially, we thought that most of that product was destined for refineries on your west coast. But in fact, more than half of it is now going to Asian countries. Korea just announced that they're going to buy an additional $1 billion per year. They want to receive of their 3 refineries an extra tanker. They've tried our heavy oil. They like it. And there are other heavy oil refineries around the world that realize that now that it's on Tidewater, we can get there directly. And so we're going to continue looking at those opportunities. But I think that there is an incredible growth opportunity for Canada. We have a different kind of oil than America does. America has light sweet. So you've got certain markets. You've got the heavy stuff. So I always look at it as more like cooperation as opposed to competition, because we can fuel and feed different markets than America can. can, and it doesn't diminish at all the American aspiration for dominance. I think, in fact, Canada and U.S. together are going to be the ones that can achieve that energy dominance for all of North America.
Well, when we consider the prospects of a new pipeline that would allow you to ship, as you were describing, more oil to foreign markets, it seems Mark Carney is behind this idea as long as there are kind of offsetting factors in terms of green investments. You described this earlier this week as a grand bargain. As you think about that bargain, how should that kind of effort be paid for? And what do you think is the most realistic route to actually get where that pipeline should go?
Our biggest oil sands producers have been proposing something called the Pathways Project. So with a combination of carbon capture, utilization and storage, maybe small modular nuclear, direct air capture for the last mile, we believe that it can be carbon neutral by 2050, at which point that would make it the lowest carbon barrel in the world. And we also know with heavy oil, you can make 6,000 different products out of a barrel of oil. And so it can be used not only for gas and diesel and aviation fuel, but also for asphalt and other types of petrochemical products. So we're really excited about the potential for that to occur. I think our best option is another pipeline to the west coast, northwest coast, probably around the Prince Rupert area. It's only about 8 to 10 days to get to the Asian markets of Japan and South Korea by going that way, and then on into, of course, China and India as new markets as well. So if we can have decarbonized bitumen going through that pipeline, not only does the pipeline project through Pathways would cost about $10 to $20 billion. It's a big hit. But if we build that pipeline, we would get about $20 billion a year in revenue for the foreseeable future. So that's the reason why I think it's a pretty good bargain. Everyone benefits from that.
I know your oil industry is dealing with wildfires right now in Alberta, at last check, affecting 7% of output. Is that roughly still the case? Can you update us on what's happening?
Yeah. When we have fires in Alberta, it's normally northern Alberta. We've got a lot of boreal forest up there. It's aged, and so once you get forestry that's about 100 years old, you either have to clear it or nature clears it for you. Yeah. And so we work very closely with our energy industry. When we hear that there's a problem, we help them. We give them clearance to do fire breaks, but we also have heavy equipment to assist with that, water bombers. We do infrared drones as well as nighttime vision helicopters, and a large number of firefighters who can help that. We've also prioritized that we want to make sure that those assets are protected when we end up with this kind of terrible fire season. In the past, we've been able to be successful in that, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to get those back online soon.
Well, and the season does seem like it's becoming semi-regular, and we're seeing the impacts of it all the way here on the east coast of the United States in terms of air quality. Is there anything else Alberta is looking at doing in terms of mitigation, trying to make sure that even with the seasonality that these fires are not as severe in the years to come?
I think we have to be realistic about the incredible volume of forestry that we have and how old it is. And so that does require the proactive approach, that you either can do prescribed burns so that you can control it, or you do mechanical removal so that you can take away the fuel, or nature will take its course. And so we've seen that now for the third terrible fire season that we've had. But those are the mechanisms that we're using. We've got to get new green growth going, because that's going to be the way that we have a differential in age in our forests, and hope that we don't end up with these problems. I should also mention we found that 67% of fires are started by human caused. So people being careless. And so we put out campaigns just saying, make sure you douse your fire, make sure that you're not sparking anything with equipment, because those are some of the reasons why we can end up with these terrible wrecks as well.